Okay, I want to start this video with a little experiment. I'm gonna play you a loop and then I'm gonna play you the loop again and you tell me what changed about it. First of all, dry. And now processed. Could you hear the difference? Try to write it down now. Now again dry and then processed in a different way. Dry. Processed. And the third example, first of all dry. And processed. Okay, I hope you wrote down your answers. So first example, the loop had a 6 dB boost at 1K. Second example, it had 6 dB of tape saturation applied and gain matched. And in the third example, it was aggressively compressed with about 30 milliseconds of attack. Now, how close did you get to that? Did you hear the specific effect it was? Did you even hear the specific settings? I'm gonna try to tell you how to get better at this and why you would want to do this in the first place. So why bother at all with ear training? First of all, it leads you to faster, more intuitive decisions. You can trust your instincts because you can rely on everything you've heard before. You can just go by what sounds good. You can trust your ears, as they say, and you don't really have to rely on advice for how to EQ something, how to compress something. You can just compress it in the way that sounds good and know that you know what you're doing. And last of all, you can understand what you hear when you're listening to music. You can hear how the tonal balance is, how it's compressed, if it's distorted, if it's not distorted. These things can be very useful in building intuition and a kind of library of sounds in your head. So a couple of ways to do this, some inside your DAW and some with specific tools. First of all, in your DAW, the most important advice is just take time to listen. Whenever you apply an effect, A/B to bypass, judge if it makes the sound better. If it doesn't make the sound better, just remove it again. Also, how does it change the sound? How does it make you feel? When would you want to use this? When would you not want to use this? What is the difference these effects actually make? Second of all, get rid of your crutches. This is gonna help, especially with EQ. Turn off your spectrum analyzers and you're gonna feel uncomfortable because you're probably used to looking at them a little more, but ideally you want to be able to just judge the difference in EQ you make by your ears. So in most EQs like Pro Q or here a stock EQ, you can just turn them off. And if you keep it that way for a short time, maybe just keep it like a week for this, you will learn to hear a lot more in your EQ and listen a lot closer to the changes you make. You can always turn it on later if you really need it, but turn it off in your default preset. Then to zoom in on your projects, you can use plugins like Isolate to solo or mute different bands and really get a feeling for what are high mids, what kinds of instruments tend to sit in the high mids, what do they contribute to the mix, what do too many high mids sound like, what do too little high mids sound like. This again is gonna help you get a better feeling for where to place what in your mixes and how to hear when something is off or misplaced. Then another thing in the DAW, try to imagine changes before you make them. This again, for example, with EQ, if you hear a drum loop, if you hear a guitar, what is it that's bothering you about you? Is it too nasal? Is it too boomy? Is it too hissy? Is it too burr? What kinds of words can you come up with that describe the change you want to make? What kinds of noises can you make? What really helps me with EQ is to kind of try to whistle these different frequencies. So is it more like too much or is it too much? These kinds of sounds are gonna make you feel a bit stupid, but they're really gonna help you understand what these different frequencies contribute. Then some apps you can use to train this. Webnet is a great free tool with a lot of different options. The core of this tool is here in the middle. You get a question. The tool is going to EQ the sound for you. You're going to try to match the EQ. Then you hit response and it tells you your score. Here you can see what kind of file you're using, what you're practicing, what bandwidth you're using. This tool also has a couple other effects you can practice with it, and this is a great free tool to get started. The second tool is an app I used a bunch. Quiz Tones. It's cheapish. I think it's like a subscription for $3 a year or something. You can upload your own files and then you can practice either differences in gain or differences in EQ. And this can be especially useful if you import your reference mixes and kind of learn how a 6 dB boost at certain frequencies in your reference mixes sounds like, for example. And the third tool I've used is Sound Gym. Now this has big upsides but also big downsides. The biggest upside is that EQ and any kind of ear training, even for musicians, can get very boring. And this kind of website just helps give it a bit more variety, and you'll probably not get sick of it quite as quickly, because you will get sick of it. It's just very repetitive, but it really pays off. Now the downside for this website is it's quite expensive, a lot more expensive than something like Quiz Tones. They also have a free version, so maybe that already has the options that you want. But if you want to get all the games, you're gonna have to pay a fair amount of money. So some exercises to get you started with this. First of all, and the biggest recommendation to get training your ears inside your DAW is to remove analyzers from your default presets. That way your default will always be using your ears, and if you really need the analyzer, you can always turn it on again. Second, try out some different ear training apps. Of course, I didn't mention all of them. I just mentioned 3 that I've personally used. I'm sure you know many more. If you Google in the App Store something ear training for producers, you're gonna find a lot of options. And try to use one of them daily for maybe 7 days or something. Just see what difference it makes for you, how you start to listen differently to the music you play, and then maybe decide if you want to make this a regular thing. I hope that could help you somehow. Maybe you can let me know what your results were, if there were any results. Maybe you have other ways of training your ears. I'd be really interested in learning them. See you.